BPod Studios.
On the air, online, on the air. This is how Boston sports fans start their day. Toucher and Hardy on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Hey, we're Toucher and Hardy. This hour of our show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. One of the great mysteries in radio history was when Howard Stern, probably the most successful, I don't know if he's the highest rated, but the most successful radio personality of all time, left the airwaves, that the CBS Radio Corporation or Infinity or whoever it was decided to take all the stations he was on from coast to coast and not only change all their formats now to all talk, and then hire a guy who'd never done radio before. Now, someone, after we did the first David Lee Roth segment, Hardy, sent me a clip. Howard Stern, like the new Howard Stern, had the guy who spearheaded the change on his show. And the guy's just, fawning all over Howard. And, you left us in such a terrible position. You're the greatest, and you're the greatest, and you're the greatest. But he never fully explains how they arrived at David Lee Roth. And in the explanation, he says David Lee Roth auditioned in Boston and did great. Now, Dan, you were involved in those auditions, were you not?
I was not. That was on another station, which we had BCN. Down the hall was the classic rock station, CLX. He would come in and do some of those shows. Do
you recall those shows going, would you describe them as great?
No, I recall them as being clunky and disjointed and awkward.
Yeah, all right. So he didn't do well. Like, there's no way David Lee Roth did
It was like he hit a
well.
home run, right? And they were like, oh, my God, this guy's unbelievable.
Yeah,
no, it was not that at all.
Yeah, so, it doesn't make any sense. He's like, they asked the guy from CBS. It's actually kind of interesting if you care at all about radio, because there's big names. And so Howard Stern, who came up in radio, became the biggest radio personality of all time. So their idea was, they tried to hire Jon Stewart to produce the show and do that. Then he said no. Then they asked Trey Parker and Matt Stone from South Park to produce the show. Again, all your biggest radio names are radio personalities. The only guy that did any good coming out of that was Adam Carolla, who did the West Coast Howard Stern shows. And he came from radio. He started at K-Rock, L.A. And then Jimmy Kimmel produced that. They asked Jimmy Kimmel, who came up in radio. He was a radio guy in Arizona, then worked at K-Rock in L.A. That's why when Kimmel comes into town and does the radio, he's so good, because he knows how difficult it is. So they went for Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and then they went to Jon Stewart, and then they went to Opie and Anthony, and he said Opie and Anthony said no, which I don't believe. I know Jim Norton, I'll have to ask him, but I don't believe they said no. I don't believe under any circumstances they said no. So they asked one radio show and then two non-radio people, instead of just filling it with a radio guy, and then ultimately decided to go with David Lee Roth, who's by Dan, who was there, at least in the building, because ZLX was in the building, at least aware that it was a disaster. His audition was even a disaster.
Yes.
Yeah, that was to me, that sounded like some Monday morning quarterbacking going on with the whole and this was months later, and the Herald wrote about this, that they knew whoever was going to take over for Stern was going to fail, and they really wanted Opie and Anthony, but they had written at the time that they didn't go with Opie and Anthony because Howard didn't like Opie and Anthony, and Howard liked David Lee Roth. So that would be a softer landing for whoever was going to take over and immediately fail. Like, why do you care what Howard Stern likes? He was doing a year-long commercial for satellite radio on your radio stations before he left. So why would you be concerned about doing something that he would have approved of?
And why would the person immediately fail? If you put a guy on in Chicago, he would have done better than Stern did in Chicago. If you put a guy on in Detroit, he would have done better than Stern did in Detroit. Those are 2 top 10 markets out of the way. If you put a local guy in Boston, he could have done as well as Stern did in Boston. You would have lost New York, and you probably would have, and you could have made up L.A. That's a real defeatist attitude. You never would have lived up to him nationally, but you could have hired a bunch of local people, and they would have done, in some cases, would have done better in provincial markets. They would have done better. He never did well in Detroit, and he never did well in Chicago. So there, I just knocked out the number 3 market in the country, the number at the time probably number 9 market in the country.
Yeah. So
I just got those off the bat. You don't think he could compete in L.A.? I'm not positive he was number 1 in L.A. It doesn't make any sense. So you knew he was going to fail in probably Boston and New York. All right. Well, then hire a guy for $10 to take the job and play records instead of making the channel. Making the whole station FM talk, which I actually enjoyed. But, and then hiring Penn Jillette to do a show. He was a magician.
Yeah.
All right, so Hardy, this leads us into where we're going with this.
Okay, so if you didn't get a chance to hear it on January 3rd, David Lee Roth, and we played the first 5 minutes of his show last week. This was hour number 3. This was at this time, Fred, at this very moment in the beginning of the 8 o'clock hour on January 3rd, David Lee Roth brought on as his first guest. Who's he going to get? Is he going to get Eddie Van Halen? Is he going to get Mick Jagger? You know, this is what we've been waiting for. David Lee Roth, the rock and roll circus that is David Lee Roth. This was his first guest on his first show.
Roth, 6 a.m., live in front of your naked, steaming eyes. It's 8 o'clock. The first day is half over. This job's a breeze. Everybody told me this was heavy lifting. Heavy lifting is dragging an oxygen tank up 23 floors in Co-op City, okay? And everybody in the 47th precinct knows what I'm talking about, and that's why I got this job.
It's the ramblings of a madman.
Well,
6 a.m. into 8 a.m. You have to know he's an EMT because everyone knew that.
Yeah, well, he was very proud of that, and he had a fellow EMT on the air with him as a guest or as a co-host, but not a guest. He's about to introduce his first guest at the 6 a.m., 8 a.m. hour. This job is a breeze.
I have a very special guest here. Somebody very close to me, and he's the very first guest of what is probably going to be a fair-sized run in radio here, and there's a reason that he's here. He's the only guest today. In fact, he's probably the only guest for the first 2 weeks. More about Chernoff later. Ladies and gentlemen, my very beloved, the patriarch of our entire family, Manny Roth. Say hello, man.
Hey, good morning, David. How you doing?
I'm doing extraordinary. Now tell the people.
Wait a minute, let me congratulate you on your new gig.
Okay, and do you think this is a good look for me? What do you think?
Well, they rushed me up here. They didn't give me time to think. Is that the theme of the program here?
Thinking? No. Nice try, though. No, the theme of this gig is this is a culmination of, you know, why do things? Why have the stories if you don't have a place to tell them?
Well, I got a mother load of stories here.
Okay, let's.
I ain't saying they're good, I ain't saying they're bad, but I got a hell of a lot of stories to tell you.
Tell the folks, where were you from, Manny? Where were you born?
Well, that's not the main story.
All right, well, no, it's not Uncle Manny. So he has his uncle on.
Uncle Manny.
Who's
Manny Roth.
Now, Manny Roth was in the Eagles. Manny Roth was the vice president of the United States?
No, Manny Roth was a nightclub owner. He founded the influential New York club Cafe Wah. He's from Newcastle, Indiana. He was born in 1919.
Oh, so Uncle Manny at the time is probably about 90 years old.
Yeah, and, he's David Lee Roth's uncle. So he brought his uncle on to tell stories.
Well, that's not the main story, but I'll start back at the beginning here.
Okay.
I'm from a little town in Indiana, a blue-collar town, Newcastle, Indiana.
Newcastle, Indiana is still there, right?
It's still there.
No, it's gone. You don't remember the nuclear war?
Somebody firebombed it out of existence.
No,
sorry, David.
It's one of the many towns in the Midwest.
Everybody's dead, David.
that got wiped out. No, it's still there. It's still a town. When was the last time you asked someone when you go, where are you from? And then he goes, it's still there? No, you didn't read? It's gone now. Like, I'm from Cleveland. Yeah, that's still around? No, it's gone.
Man.
And it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed for 80 years.
Now, the last...
And he's been aware of it the whole time.
You moron. It's still exactly the same.
time that you guys went to a class reunion, half of the city square was a class reunion and the other half was a Ku Klux Klan rally. Is that right?
Well, you were there.
In spirit. No, people wonder what this looks like. To my greatest memory, it looks like the movie Hoosiers, where Gene Hackman was in. That's that part of the country breaking away.
Exactly.
Yeah, both those movies were set in Indiana. There's no question about it. Hoosiers and breaking away.
So imagine. I mean, I was working for this radio station at the time. Fred, you were about to be working for this radio station.
Well, because of this very thing.
As part of the hiring process to somehow salvage what was going to be left of WBCN. This is the first day of the first morning show of the guy who's going to replace Howard Stern. And Uncle Manny ends up staying on for 2 hours. He stayed on for the entirety of the rest of the show.
And just weaving tales?
Well, that's the order of things in Newcastle, in Indiana. Basketball, God, country, and what?
Yeah.
This is better than any stories about being on the road with Van Halen. I think this was a wise first guess.
The guy could have just gone out and gone, here are the women I slept with. I mean, he could have done a month's run on places I've been drunk. Like people I've done coke with. Like the guy has an encyclopedia worth of stories. But he brought on his 90-year-old Uncle Manny to talk about Newcastle, Indiana.
Yes.
His first day on the radio. And I understand not going like balls out the first day. You kind of want to ease in. I don't think you have your uncle on to talk about Newcastle, Indiana. Especially when you are a famous person who has so many stories of your own. He could have just gone, call in and ask me a question about my life.
Oh, my God. He just got to take open phone calls for the first day.
Yeah,
for the first week.
I will answer I never before told stories. Like, you can ask me what happened in Omaha, Nebraska in 1981 on the Fair Warning Tour. Oh, I'll tell you what, I had twins and, da-da-da-da. I mean, that's a 10-minute story. I would have listened to that. Like, if you had David Lee Roth on the show, you'd let David Lee Roth in for a week. And if he was answering questions and open to talking, I mean, he has 20 hours easily worth of interesting things to say.
Cocaine-fueled fistfight stories between you and the Van Halen brothers. That's what you want to hear.
Michael Anthony eating stories. Like you could talk about how much he hit Sammy Hagar for 15 minutes. I would have listened to it.
Yes, that would have been great.
The recording with, going, oh, babe! Just like all that stuff. How'd you get all that done? All right. Well, there you go. David Lee Roth. Uncle Manny. All right. Do you know what's going on in the Combine? You want to talk to someone who knows what's going on in the draft?
Yes, sure.
I'm being told by Barry Siegel from Mr. Sid, Manny is no Mark Gimelli.
Oh. That was the beginning of the David Lee Roth show.
That's right. Yeah, he wanted to make it really like good. A vaudevillian burlesque act.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. That was it. And you should hear the guy on Stern. You should go find it on YouTube. You should hear the guy on Stern just flopping around trying to explain how David Lee Roth came into the picture and seeming cool. I guess he still works with Jimmy Kimmel, or he did at the time. So he's like, Jimmy and Adam are the best. And it's like, you are such a failure. Why did you go to the guys from South Park to fill a radio show? They don't know anybody in radio. They probably don't like the medium. They probably don't care at all, which is why they turned the gig down. Why'd you go to Jon Stewart? He's a bright guy. He's a funny comedian. He's a talented person. What does he know about doing the radio? He doesn't. He wouldn't take the show. So why would he know who to hire?
How long did the David Lee Roth experiment last?
Till April.
Yeah. It was about as big a disaster as you could imagine. And they ultimately hired Opie and Anthony. All right. And then Rover, the kid from Cleveland that they put on all the stations in the Midwest, is only on in Cleveland now. But I guess they didn't really give him a chance. And I thought Adam Carolla was good, but Now he has the podcast. All right, we'll be back in just a moment.
BackstageCountry.com, your online home for all things country music. Wondering who made our list of the top 5 all-time queens of country music? Did Carrie Underwood make the cut? Find out now when you text Queens to 45911 and scroll through the list on BackstageCountry.com. Text Queens to 45911 to see the talented artists who rounded out our top 5 list.
Toucher, Hardy.
You get used to sitting back and letting Daddy drive the car.
98.5 The Sports Hub.
Hey, we're Toucher and Hardy. Chris Trapasso, draft writer and analyst for CBS Sports.com. He is heading to the Combine today where the business gets done. And now that your Patriots have the number 3 pick in the draft, you're left. You should be interested in this Combine as it will greatly affect the future of this team with the new front office and new coaching staff and almost every position being a position of need, including the quarterback position. Chris, thank you for joining us on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we know about the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft. I guess the kid from UNC hasn't decided if he's going to go there yet. Drake May. But we know that Daniels and Caleb Williams aren't. What kids are quarterbacks are in the participating in the Combine, and where do you see them slotted?
Well, first I'll start with Drake May. I think has a great opportunity to step into the limelight. I don't know necessarily how much it could boost his stock. Could it boost him ahead of Caleb Williams at number 1? Probably not. But like you said, with Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels not participating, Drake May has a big arm. He's going to be one of the biggest quarterbacks there. He showed a very live arm plus arm talent during his 3 years at North Carolina. I think it would be great for him to work out and just, again, it's not going to change anything that much, but it could just push him in the right direction for the competitiveness angle that a lot of coaches want to see. J.J. McCarthy from Michigan there's been no indication that he will not work out. He's another one, big-time talent, not quite, Patrick Mahomes type talent, but he's going to be bigger. He's got a good arm. He's athletic. And Bo Nix is the other one. He and his Pac-12 counterpart, Michael Penix Jr., I think it's a big week for them. They are seemingly set to work out. How athletic will Michael Penix be? That's the one concern with him. He can make all the throws. He has kind of a awkward or obscure release, but gets the football down the field as good as any quarterback in this class. So just questions about his mobility. And then with Bo Nix, I think he is a great athlete. He was, Mr. Football in Alabama 4 or 5 years ago, started at Auburn, wasn't very good, and then settled into this kind of game manager role that I think didn't really highlight his ability to run with the football, which we know is so important in today's NFL.
Okay, so you mentioned Penix in his release, which is the first and most obvious thing that I notice about him when I watch him throw. Can he do anything to dispel the notion out there that I have and a lot of people I probably have? It's like, okay, he can get the ball downfield in college, but when the lineman grows 6 inches in the NFL on both sides of the ball, is he still going to be able to get away with that?
That's a good question, and I don't know if he can dispel any of those concerns at the Combine. He's not going to come out and suddenly throw the ball differently. I mean, we've gone through many quarterbacks throughout the pre-draft process over the years of, he's going to change his release, Tim Tebow being the most famous one that ultimately never happened. I do think, and I kind of just touched on it, that if Penix Jr. tests and goes through the whole gamut of the workouts and isn't a lower-level athlete, that'll do a lot for his draft stock, because I do think there are concerns about can he do it when he's not perfectly protected in the NFL. But there's also, and this is coming from me and a few people that I've spoken to in the league, it's the off structure stuff that is seemingly there with all the elite quarterbacks today, just not there with him. So again, I don't think there's anything he can do that would really assuage those concerns in terms of creativity with his legs. But if he tests like an above-average athlete, it'll just make him be a little bit more encouraging as, hey, maybe with some seasoning, he can be someone that can, run a bootleg or occasionally escape from pressure and make a play outside of the pocket, because he was such a good, strictly pocket passer those 2 years at Washington.
The other big story out of Indianapolis so far has been the wide receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr. not only won't test here, apparently he's not going to test at his pro day either. He prefers to let his tape stand for itself. But the bigger story is Malik Neighbors has apparently passed him on some teams' draft boards. Are you on board this train? Where do you land on this?
I am. I think these two are elite talents. This is like Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle type, where they're going to go inside probably the top 6, with the Giants sitting there at 6, which is relatively rare at the wide receiver position. I have Neighbors ahead of Harrison for one reason. He is better after the catch. And you watch that Super Bowl, the Chiefs and the 49ers, easily the 2 best teams after the catch the last 5 to 7 years. The Chiefs have led the NFL in total yards after the catch in the regular season 4 straight years. The 49ers have led the league in yards after the catch per reception in the last 6 years. So to me, that's what I'm looking for in a wide receiver, especially if I'm drafting one that early. The ability to stop and start, take a slant, go 30 yards, take a bubble screen, take a dig route, create those big plays. Marvin Harrison Jr. has run a larger variety of routes. He's just a more polished route runner and can get down the field. He's going to be a little bigger than Malik Neighbors. But in today's NFL, I think yards after the catch is the name of the game now and will be for the next 3 to 5 years. So that's why I have Neighbors just slightly ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. It's kind of a shame we're not going to see them work out, because they're both freaky athletes.
I love it. I love this. And okay, so that being said, you Waddle wouldn't be bad to have Waddle, and it certainly wouldn't be bad to have Jamar Chase. Is there a reason the Patriots, in your estimation, should not take a quarterback at 3? I'll start with that.
No, I'm a big person where being a draft analyst, it comes with the job that you're going to get a lot of players wrong. And even Bill Belichick got a lot of players wrong, the greatest coach of all time. Yeah,
might have cost him his job. I'm taking a wild guess.
Yeah, Peter King got him wrong too.
So where I've kind of landed on this is, you can go into a draft process and understand, look, I'm going to be wrong 60 to 70% of the time. But what I think teams, and for myself, draft analysts have to get right is positional value. And when you're the Patriots and you have not picked anywhere close to this high since Gerard Mayo, the head coach in 2008, you need to pick the highest value positions. And for the Patriots and Bob Kraft, they're not wanting to pick here again. They don't want to have the 5th pick next year. I think it's a very good quarterback class. You don't know if Drake May is going to be the one that really pops. Is it going to be Jaden Daniels? Is it going to be Caleb Williams? Is it 2 of those guys? Is it none of them? But I think you have to roll the dice at that most valuable position, because yes, the last few years there was a lack of explosiveness on offense, and Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi were not in the best situation, but we tend to see the good quarterbacks can elevate those around them, and suddenly those explosiveness problems aren't really question marks when you have that quarterback that can really move the needle. So I think unless they just totally are not entranced by who they would be able to pick at number 3 overall, yes, I would say just because of positional value and the potential payout and dividend, you have to go quarterback at 3 if you're the Patriots.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, so say there's a team that's willing to make the trade for 3, they pick up the Patriots, that team's first-round pick this year, their first-round pick next year, maybe an additional pick. You just said, you got a positional need and that you need a quarterback. Is there a possibility that if trading down and picking up different extra draft capital, you believe one of these second-tier quarterbacks is worth that kind of move?
Absolutely.
Okay, so is it J.J. McCarthy far and away worse than the Daniels, May, Caleb Williams in your estimation?
No, I don't think so. And based on that situation, I think that would be option number 2 in terms of just being the best option for the Patriots. And you would have to look at it like this. Is Jaden Daniels, let's say, who's kind of presumed right now to be the number 3 overall pick or to be there at 3 when the Patriots go on the clock, is Jaden Daniels a first-round pick and change better than J.J. McCarthy? I don't think he is. So I think if you're the Patriots and you're like, man, we have a bunch of needs, we understand it probably is not going to be that super quick of a turnaround. Let's build this team out at the start of the Gerard Mayo era. If you don't love Jaden Daniels, if it's Drake May and you're like, I don't really love him, let's open up the phone lines. And like you said, get a 2025 first. It would probably get them a huge trade package for a team to come up for a quarterback or Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. I think J.J. McCarthy, I even like Spencer Rattler later, probably not even in the first round. Michael Pratt from Tulane is good too. But J.J. McCarthy would be the one because of his arm talent, the improvisation ability, and the fact that he was pretty good, even though he wasn't the focal point. I think his best football is in front of him. If you put him with a glut of picks and all the money that the Patriots have in free agency, that would be a pretty good option too.
Yeah, because that's the word I've been hearing for months now, that J.J. McCarthy, when he throws, when he starts working out for teams, he's got unbelievable physical talent that maybe wasn't showcased at Michigan.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say, that it was obviously a run-based, defense-based offense there at Michigan. But when you watch Michigan over the last 3 years, there were a lot of times where they needed a big throw. They needed that far hash deep out on 3rd and 12, and McCarthy fired it in there. And you're like, man, that was a long throw with a lot of velocity. Or when things broke down, he would sometimes look a little awkward doing it, but he could make those big plays. I think that play in the semifinal against Alabama where it was like a reverse, it was almost like a Philly special back to him, and the pass was not good. He caught it with one hand, got the ball, and threw it downfield as he took a hit from an Alabama defender. That, to me, was kind of signified what J.J. McCarthy can do outside of the structure. And again, I think he's ascending because he's big, he's athletic, and has the arm talent to kind of step into more of a featured role in the NFL.
All right, Chris Trapasso, love it. Good stuff. Read his stuff at cbssports.com as the Combine gets underway. Thank you so much for the time, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I really like it. I like it a lot.
So there you go. He's got Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr., and he loves J.J. McCarthy.
Well, and then I wouldn't take that position that high if there's comparable talent, because that means to me that it's not a franchise-altering guy. But what do I know? This I do find interesting. Another guy at CBS who's a draft expert. Who cares who it is? His name's Joel Klatt. He ranks the QB prospects since 2012, which was the Andrew Luck RG3 draft. So those guys are eliminated, right? So it's from then on. Caleb Williams is number 1. Trevor Lawrence is number 2. Joe Burrow is number 3. Drake May is number 4. And Bryce Young is number 5. That's how he ranks the guys.
All right.
Coming out of college. He says evaluations of Mahomes was difficult, and no QB has succeeded from that offense prior. Saying that Mahomes, he was at Texas Tech, right?
Air raid, yeah.
No one has succeeded at the professional level from the air raid offense. So they did not have Mahomes. They did not see what Andy Reid and the team there in Kansas City saw.
Can you imagine if J.J. McCarthy he'll test, this week, and if he knocks everybody out, can you imagine if a team comes up at like 8 or 9 or 10, and the rumor is Minnesota talked to the Patriots recently about trading up. They're 13. I want to say, I forget where they are, but apparently the price would be 3 first-round draft picks to move up from where Minnesota is to 3 to take the Patriots pick. If the Patriots get 3 first-round picks, take J.J. McCarthy.
So this year's in 2 additional.
Yes.
I don't believe they would do that either. For 3, no.
It doesn't. No.
I don't think that would happen. But you're right. But the J.J. McCarthy thing is interesting. And who's been ringing that bell? Not because I know, just because who's the draftnik that at the station that's been talking about the ascension of J.J. McCarthy now.
Mike Lockhart.
Since December, who has been since October has been talking about the ascension of J.J. McCarthy.
That would be you, correct?
Tyler Milliken.
Yeah. Milliken, noted football guy.
Yeah. Knows his stuff.
Yours truly.
Oh.
Fred Dutcher.
Right.
Because what do I know? But I've just been told by my peeps on the ground, J.J. McCarthy's going to be a top 10 pick. And remember when mock drafts were having him not even in the first round, Jonathan Wallach?
Yes, I do remember that.
No, you
that
don't, because you said Mike Lockhart first. And it wasn't Mike Lockhart, it was me.
I didn't know.
Because you're a little offended. Listen, you're a little slow on the uptake. There's no question about it.
Right.
And yeah, there is some dealing to be done by teams that don't necessarily need a quarterback. I would say, Chicago is still that one team that I'm like, they don't have the need at quarterback like other teams do. Like the Patriots need a quarterback.
They can't pass up Caleb.
No.
And they can't. But at least
they're not going to.
There's some wiggle room. What it all boils down to, though, Fred, is every team is going to identify their guy. They're going to say, that's the guy for our franchise and for our system and all that. And every team does that independently. So you can talk yourself into stuff of like, well, I wonder if they want them. Every team will have the guy that they want, and the pieces will fall into place accordingly.
Okay.
Now, it only gets interesting when multiple teams identify the same guy.
Wouldn't it be funny? Like, wouldn't you be a little concerned, and then we have to break, but wouldn't you be a little concerned if there was a team willing to give up 3 first round? One doesn't really count because it's a pick this year, but really giving 2 future first round picks up to get your pick to take at the same position of need that you have? Wouldn't that concern you a little bit? Like, it's one thing if, like, you're a stacked team. Say there's, like, an all-world edge rusher, and you're a bad team that happens to have the best edge rusher in the league, so you trade out of that spot because you don't want the edge rusher. But if you need a quarterback and they're trading up for a quarterback, wouldn't that concern you that they're willing to mortgage their future
here's
to
the
get
thing.
this kid? And then you're sitting there like, sure, I'll take it.
Think about it. Elliot Wolf, this is his first year in charge of the draft, and he's sitting there in that room saying, you know what? I like J.J. McCarthy a lot more than Drake May. And I want to trade out of 3 and trade down to 8, 9, whatever it is, and we'll get McCarthy there. Trust me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the pressure after making that call in your first year in control of the draft board?
And then the kid at 3 becomes a superstar quarterback.
Drake May lights it up. He's a Pro Bowler, and J.J. McCarthy's out of the league as soon as his contract
Or
is
how
up.
about this? You trade down to 8 and someone trades up to 7 and takes J.J. McCarthy ahead of you. I mean, it's
the risk involved with that.
Well, I mean, it's a huge gamble. I mean, you can't trade down with Atlanta's at 8. If you trade down and Atlanta could want a quarterback, you trade down to 8. There's no guarantee you get the quarterback you want at all because another team trade up. I mean, Arizona's sitting at 5. I mean, or 4 or
Arizona
5.
just tweeted out that Kyler Murray was their franchise quarterback.
What I'm saying is that they could trade out of 4 easily to let someone trade up to take J.J. McCarthy. There could be a run of 4 quarterbacks. I'm telling you, the whole time since J.J. McCarthy was really in high school, people have been singing this kid's praises, and everyone's saying, wait until he works out, wait until he works out. And I think that's why he's working out at the Combine. It's because he's going to dazzle everyone at the Combine.
Better not screw the pooch now. You're going to have a lot of egg on your face, dummy.
I don't think you even mean it. I think you're giving me sass, and I'll take it. I'll take a little side of sugar with that sass once we hit these buttons and get the break.
Oh, bless your heart.
Oh, bless your heart. Oh, Jesus. When I hung up on that hillbilly from Carolina, people would be like, I want to kill you, you stupid Yankee. Bless your heart. Like, they'd be like, hey, go kill yourself. Bless your heart.
Kyle, what's his name? Bless your heart, Freddie.
Bless your heart. Like, ugh. Yeah. I get it. It's not even the South, really. It's just this weird purgatory. All right, we'll be back. Here are the headlines.
BackstageCountry.com, your online home for all things country music. Country music has so many generous artists who always seem to jump in to help those in need. We're spotlighting 5 who lead by example and lend a helping hand to charitable causes. See who made our list when you text GIVE to 45911. Text GIVE to 45911 and read all about it right now on BackstageCountry.com.
It's called Rising and Grinding.
Start your
Got your finger on the pulse, Fred. Seldom right and never wrong.
Right here. Is that Toucher or is that Hardy?
I know, looks like a poodle. It's an effing poodle, dumbass.
The Sports Hub.
All right, we are Toucher and Hardy. Our show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Last night, your Boston Bruins lose in another shootout. We're very lucky that the Bruins won't have to do shootouts in the postseason. The Pasternak with the hat trick, and then like the worst shootout. He's just terrible in shootout. And watch, Fred, what are you talking about? 75%? I don't know. The last couple shootouts I've seen him shoot, they've been very lackadaisical efforts. It's like he doesn't care. It's almost like isn't that funny? Like the worst players can be the best shootout guys. Like, you would think that the guys with the most goals would be the best at it. It's such a dumb thing to do. It's like having a free throw contest to end a basketball game, in that the worst guy in your team is probably the best free throw shooter.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest try-hard, like, undersized guard is probably your best free throw shooter.
The only reason why I don't mind it is somewhat of an approximation of what could happen a little bit in a game. It's a breakaway where
DeBrusque fails like last night.
where it's a guy with a puck on his stick and he's skating toward the goal and he's going to take a shot. To me, like, the worst are penalty kicks in soccer, which has nothing to do with the actual game that's being played. At least this has something to do with hockey, and there's skill involved on both sides. Whereas in soccer, it's like a guessing game for the keeper, and he's got to commit right, left, or stay still before the ball is even kicked. To me, that's stupid.
All I know is if the Bruins were sitting on the precipice of the playoffs and they missed the playoffs by 2 points and it was because of shootouts, people would be pissed. Go ahead.
I'm looking at career after last night's miss, 9 for 31.
So that's probably not terrible.
It's like 20-25%.
Whatever. It just seems like I admitted off the top that I probably was wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. It just seems like he should be better at it, and it's unfair. What do I know? Thank you for pointing out my ignorance, Jonathan. I understand that the internet is the tool of the dumb.
Charlie Coyle, 18 for 30. You know,
all right.
It's weird.
Well, yeah. Well, that's my point. Is that Charlie Coyle's not the best?
That's me coming back around to help you out, Freddie.
Well, thank you, John. I'm just glad I had to punish you to receive praise. Yeah. I just whatever. It doesn't seem to. It seems just. I wondered, and I have wondered this. Like, you know how like Slater was on the Patriots forever. Like, if it would be worth it in the regular season just to have, like, some jabroni that just was really, really good at the shootout. Like, some dude that, like, you found on a lake, like, on a pond, that was, like, just super, like, crafty with the stick. You played him, like, 3 minutes a night, but then he was, like, a specialist.
Yeah. He has just some fourth-line winger. And, and he would just, he's going to prove his worth tonight in the shootout.
Yeah, exactly. He was like the guy, like he was automatic. He was like 90% on shootouts.
That'd be great.
There's got to be a guy that could do it. Like he can do the dipsy do. Are you allowed in the NHL to do the lacrosse thing, the Michigan special?
I assume you are. Why wouldn't you be?
On the stick.
Can you put the puck on your stick and like flip it around and like?
Sure you can.
And like throw it behind your back.
There was one guy that the Bruins had. His name was Kasper's Dogovins. That had
I know who that is.
A dog man. He had a very weird shootout thing. If you, I can't even describe it. But look it up.
It's swirly whirly.
Yeah, where he put the stick blade upside down on the puck and kept it on the ice and did a 360. It's just weird.
Yeah, I actually know who that is, and I'm not kidding. So anyway, they lost to the team, the Seattle Kraken, who had the radio broadcast last night played not only the national anthem, but whatever song they sing before it. There was a lot of singing and dancing going on at the Seattle Kraken game. And not a Sir Mix-a-Lot track to be found. You'd think they would just start the game with My Posse's on Broadway and leave it there. Or when he just went Apache and just went and jump on it and played Apache in the background. Mm-hmm. All right, but here, Hardy, is how the announcement when Seattle got their franchise.
Yeah, and they were unveiling the logo, and you will hear at the very beginning the sound effect as the logo is unveiled, and then a very capable PR woman will explain all things about the Kraken and the logo and the name.
They couldn't even get Kid Sensation.
This is something that we have enjoyed for years on the midday program, but you had not heard it.
I have not heard it. So if I haven't heard it, no one's heard it.
Listen to that crowd. They love it.
Woo!
You can tell.
Ladies and gentlemen, Larry, the white guy, people think he's funny. He's a real estate investor that makes a lot of money.
We are proud to give you the Seattle Kraken. Seattle is a city built by the sea, and our Puget Sound is notorious for its deep waters.
is notoriously deep. The Puget Sound is so effing deep. Check it out. It goes down for feet and feet and feet, and you think it stopped going down, and I got news for you, Buster. It's going down even more.
But you guys, seriously, we're going to talk about Seattle, okay? We're going to talk, and it's the Puget Sound.
Carol, tell me something about the Puget Sound off the top of your head. Go.
It's deep.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Write it down. We're brainstorming like two troops. We're the effing Kraken, okay?
As a child growing up here, I was always really proud of that.
Okay, so you're a child from here. What were you proud of?
I was proud of Puget Sound. Because
Why?
Because it's so deep.
Jesus Christ. Okay, this thing's going to fly.
My grandmother from Ballard and my grandfather from Linden would entertain my siblings.
Okay, so the crowd wants to know more about you. So what I want you to do is sit there and just explain away. Go back generations.
Okay, I can do that because my grandparents are from here.
Okay, so Deep Waters, your parents.
Yeah.
You got Kraken. Here we go.
Okay.
Siblings and cousins and I with tales of sea voyages and beasts in the deep. I learned about Galloping Gertie and the legend of the King Octopus under Tacoma Narrows Bridge.
Just wowing with some stupid Dungeons and Dragons nonsense.
But I totally can. And when I say Galloping Gertie, they're going to know that I'm from here. And I'm going to say Tacoma Narrows Bridge. And I'll say that.
That's right.
I'm going to say both those things. I'm totally gonna kill it. I'm going to slay.
Just make it as much about you as possible.
I know. That's what I'm doing.
You're from here.
It's
you
what
ooze
I'm doing.
it.
It's what I'm doing.
And I can't help but think that these magnificent and highly intelligent creatures could only be descended from one thing.
But I'm not going to say what it is.
See, the truth is, hockey's always been here.
You guys, you don't even know. It's like we're an expansion team. Well, hockey's always been here. And I play pond hockey with my grandfather, and he'd tell me about Galloping Gertie. But hockey's always been here. So
the thing gallops underwater. It's got hooves.
Galloping Gertie is a bridge. Don't act like you don't know.
It's got hooves. It gallops all over the water. It gallops like Christ on walking on water. But it's a horse.
It's a bridge, but there's also monsters in the deep and Puget Sound. Hockey's all been here. God.
A sleeping giant ready to be awoken.
Huh? You lost me there. But you keep going.
I'm bringing it back around the Cracker.
And this city deserves a hockey club as untamed as the sea herself.
As untamed as these heroin addicts.
This city deserves a team as untamed as the aggressive homeless that we have who are missing their methadone.
Junk is no joke. It's a problem. Address it. Let people know that you're aware of the homeless junkies.
And when we heard the rallying cry of the fans and we heard the undeniable passion they had for this name,
we ignored it and just went with our instinct.
We stopped reading the internet comments. We stopped looking at all the posts on Twitter.
Nothing's going to make you guys happy.
And TikTok, because we knew. Guys, we're so totally the Kraken.
They got the cheerleader from Fast Times.
We knew it was the one. We are the Seattle Kraken.
All right, lady. I would believe there's far more famous people than that woman from Seattle.
Again, bring in Sir Mix-a-Lot. He could have done a better job.
Yep. They could have done that.
Bring in Marshawn Lynch to say, Seattle Kraken, F you.
That's right. We're effing calling this team the Seattle Kraken.
They could have had
Xavier
Tad.
McDaniels.
Oh, X-Men, yeah.
You could have had Tad come out. You could have had the dude from the Melvins. You could have had anyone come out. It would have been very exciting.
What was the song? Pepsi? What was the big Tad hit?
All I know is you didn't want Tad sitting on you. He was a heavy fella.
Oh, no.
No, he big man. All right. Dave Hill is a musician, comedian, author. And I follow him there on Instagram. I'm a fan of his comedy. He has written a a book. He's written several books, but there's a book about his voyages in hockey, and we will discuss that with Mr. Dave Hill in just a moment.